Bata bata, bata bata, bata box.
Turn it up.
I told you now.
Please.
You are worse than me.
Another year is ending. Shey you dey whine me.
Hi guys, welcome to BattaBox. I'm so glad that you joined us. Today we're going to be talking about something very, very important, especially with respect to what's going on in Africa currently. And that has to do with education, where a certain group of people think they're better than the other group of people. And that's something that has been plaguing the African continent forever. And today we're going to really be diving into that and finding out why is that the case. I will be making an argument that it's partly because of education, and we're going to be kind of unraveling that. Why is it that some people think they are better than another? Basically, education is the facilitation of new learning, facilitation of new knowledge, facilitation of new skills, values, or belief systems. So where you have people who acquired this type of knowledge, who acquired this kind of beliefs or this kind of skills, what happens is that they end up thinking that because I have these particular skills and knowledge, I am something and I'm better than my brother. So we're going to be focusing on formal education for this particular video, and I wanted to kind of have you guys consider certain things. Now, according to the Center for Migration Studies and the Migration Policy Institute, a lot of African countries, particularly Nigeria, have the most number of immigrants that are educated. So they looked at 10 different countries, and Nigeria is actually one of the 10. I'll put a link in the video description below so you can kind of take a look at that for yourself. So you have a lot of Nigerians and Ghanaians and the South Africans who are traveling abroad. And most of them, when they travel abroad, they are very, very educated. In fact, they're one of the most educated, at least Nigeria in particular, is the top 10 in the US. So they're very educated, and they've acquired this type of skills that makes them able to qualify for certain positions. That's a very good thing, and that's something noteworthy. What that does back home is that it divides a bit of classism, and I'll be describing some of the disadvantages of being overeducated. Now, if you are new to this channel, welcome to BattaBox. Here we talk about all things Nigeria, all things Africa, and African culture, original Nigerian culture. So please subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. So first and foremost, education prevents thinking outside of the box. The whole idea of being educated is because we want you to think in a particular way. We want you to think in a particular way, and by thinking in a particular way, your logic, your steps, they're all linear. And it prevents people, education that is, prevents people from thinking outside of that box. And that is why they want people that are educated as an employer. Employers want people that are educated because educated people can follow rules, they can follow instructions, they can do things a particular way, they can do things a certain way. And that's important when you are in a manufacturing or when you're in a manufacturing job or you're in a process-oriented job. So let's be clear about that. When people go and get educated, the formal education, the most important, or probably perhaps I would argue personally, that the most beneficial, the most advantageous reason why they do that is so that they can think in a particular way. And most people consider education as a signal to employers that, oh wow, this person has a PhD. A PhD is hard, and a PhD, you have to be committed to it. You have to be doing certain things every day for many years. So if you've got a doctorate degree, a law degree, these just signals that you're committed and you can get a particular thing done. Or even if it's an engineering degree, whatever the degree may be, that academic degree is just to follow a process. And it was kind of at the end of the 20th century was when a lot of that came out, where we have the industrialization era and the post-industrial era. What that does is we're building cars. What that means is that we're building cars, we're building machines. We need people to be thinking a particular way. We need people to do things a certain way. And it makes it easy because we have that structure. If you try to think outside the box, you'll be shocked that you might have to be sacked or fired or let go, because that's not the point of building whatever it is the company is trying to build. So back to my point about education prevents thinking outside the box. Another thing not thinking outside the box does is that we end up avoiding talking to people who do not think like we do, who do not look like we do, who do not believe in what we believe, because, hey, they don't have my value system. Those guys are illiterate. They're not educated. Why am I even wasting my time with you? You can also look at the military. A lot of the military going on and the military ruled countries, the military thinks they are a bit better than others. This happened in Nigeria back in the 80s and 90s, whereby they refer to civilians as bloody civilians because the military are those educated in the military way and they're better than those who have not been. Education also gives you kind of a false sense, basically a sense of false worth. You feel like, oh, I'm important. It just makes you look down on people who don't have the qualifications that you do and who don't have the beliefs that you do. This is something that's very common in religion, where some religious people say they are better than others because only them can talk to God, or only them can go to Jesus, or their way is the only way to God. So, or is the only way to pray, is the only way to be spiritual. In fact, some of them actually argue that. So, because of having that particular education and that particular belief, it creates a lot of rot in society. It creates contentions, and it just makes it difficult for people to be able to get along or have any form of unity. Academic careers, actually, or professional careers, they tend to be overcrowded. While there are some that are less overcrowded, but those that are overcrowded, many people are still trying to go in there and say, well, oh wow, I want to be a medical this because everybody is trying to be medical. Now, I'm not saying the medical field is overcrowded, but there are certain fields whereby people are just going in and going in, and there are many, many students. You wonder, like, why are these people doing that? Because they've been told by their parents or by their dad or their mom or whoever that this is what we do in our family. My family is always been pastor. My father was a pastor. My grandfather was a pastor. My great grandfather was a pastor. So you have to be a pastor. What that does is that a lot of people who are following this, a lot of people who are following the, a lot of people who are following the formal education end up living their lives without purpose. They end up living their life without being fulfilled. Or they end up doing things whereby they're like, oh, why am I doing this? They find out much later in life that they're in the wrong field. And they may not even be happy doing what they're doing. And that's one of the side effects of the formal education. Formal education systems have a lot of people who are not happy and they are just doing what they're doing just to get paid. So people end up living without finding the true calling in life or the true purpose in life. Particularly in Africa, those who are educated are considered elitist. Even in other parts of the world, you have the issue of elitism or the issue of egalitarianism, where people think I'm better than you because I'm educated than you. And you have different classes and social classes. Even in places like India, by the way, India and China is one of the top 10 based on the study I cited earlier from the Center of Migration Studies and the Migration Policy Institute. India is a place where you have a lot of classism and classism, and it's just really kind of interesting when you start to look at these issues and what's the root cause. Part of it is because of education. I'm more educated than you are. You're not educated. I went to this school. You went to that school. This school is better than that school, or my religion is better than your religion. And what that does is it causes division in society. It prevents unity. So if you look at back to Nigeria, where back in the 80s and 90s, and even in the early 2000s, up until very recently, actually, you have those who went to polytechnic or colleges of education or technical colleges, and those who went to the universities. So there were certain jobs that if you went to a university, you couldn't apply for. Well, actually, universities were thought higher, so they were thought higher than the polytechnic. So if you went to a particular, if you have a degree like an OND, Ordinary National Diploma, or the higher national diploma, HND, you could not qualify for some federal job. These were jobs that every Nigerian should be able to apply for. Because you have an HND, even though you went to a technical college and you went to college, you might even be smarter than the guy with the BSc, but only BScs can apply. Where they look down on you because you went to polytechnic and spent 5 years. Whereas the guy who went to university, who spent 4 years, gets the job because he just went to the university and has this diploma. So he has a degree rather. There's this disunity in the society that is caused, and people tend to look down on you because, oh wow, you went to a polytechnic. Maybe you are not smart enough to get into a university. They may not be as smart as you. Those guys may not be able to do the job as better than you can do it. So education is just kind of a checkbox whereby you just say, oh yeah, I can comply. I can follow the rules. I can signal. It's also a form of signaling. I can signal to the employees that, hey, yes, me too. You know, I started a degree and I finished the degree. I started a diploma, I can finish the diploma. So when you are at the factory or when you are at the plant or when you are at your job, whatever it is you're doing, even as an accountant, and they give you a project or a task, by going to school and spending 4 years and completing your courses and your coursework and getting all A's, shows to the employer that if I give this person a little task, this person can also do it. If you divide everything you learned in your formal education into 3, 1/3 of it is just garbage. Like you didn't need to do it, you didn't need to learn it. It was a waste of time and waste of your life. Because at the end of the day, if what people are looking for is economic empowerment and financial freedom, why do you want to spend 12 years of your life going to get a degree that you may, at the end of the 12 years, have a lot of debt for it, might not even be interested in paying for it, or might not be interested in doing that, and you end up, this is not my passion. And especially if one thought of everything you learned is garbage, like you don't even need it, like it's just a waste of time. The other third is one that they claim makes you smarter. So people are like, well, you get educated so you can get smarter. So I'm arguing that one third of the other third is just stuff that may make you smarter, and the other third is the thing that you probably really need. So one third of what you actually learned in school or less is what you may need in that career if you decide to stay in that career path. But if you decide not to stay in that career path, pretty much you just went to school and wasted 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of your life, except if you want to work for someone, except if you want to be hireable, except if you want to meet that minimum qualification. To me, it's kind of like a standardized test, like the SAT or the GRE or the GMAT. For those of you who are students, you know what I'm talking about, or ACT, the American College Test. And what all these tests do is just to show that, okay, it's kind of like, okay, everybody has this degree. It's the entry level. So yes, education is good, but if you are someone who don't like working for anyone, if you're someone who are entrepreneurial in spirit, if you're someone who can do what you like and what fulfills you, what makes you happy, what makes you glow, then why are you going to college and spending 5 years? If you are also someone who don't plan on working for anyone, so that 5 years of your life could have been spent doing something else, something that would have accelerated your life further. So that if you hadn't gone to college for 5 years and your friends went to college and came back, in that 5 years, you would have gotten a lot done and found yourself and find your calling. So ultimately, yes, education is good. I'm not saying don't be educated. I'm not saying don't get a bachelor's degree, don't get a master's, don't get a PhD or postdoc or whatever it is you want to do. Go ahead and do it. But just remember that when you get overeducated, sometimes it can create a situation whereby you are overqualified for certain jobs. So some people do not get jobs because they are overqualified. Even though they could do job, but it's too much, they can't afford you because you've gotten too much education. For the single ladies, I know this is probably a sensitive issue whereby ladies are going back to school and they are trying to get their masters and get their PhD. That makes it harder for you to find a husband because African men in particular want a woman that they can be able to work with. They don't want a woman who is earning more than them for the most part. They don't want a woman who's like bossy and trying to tell them, well, this is how this is going to work in the home. Because the African man is more closer, the African man is closer to nature and the way nature sees it. And for those of you who are Christians, whatever religion you follow, the man is the head of the household. So when a woman gets educated and overeducated, she thinks, well, I'm better than him. He's an idiot. He's stupid. He doesn't think. Not understanding that your education doesn't make you smarter. Your education does not make you more knowledgeable. Your education is just a piece of paper that you went and paid to some university so that they can give you a degree so you can go and get a job. So if you are there thinking that, oh, I have a master's degree, or I have a PhD, or I have this, therefore I'm better than everybody else and I'm smarter, you are kind of a mumu because it doesn't really make sense. You're only as smart as your employer thinks you are. And what that does in society is cause division. It causes whereby people are kind of not getting along, and people may even resent you because you're overqualified or because you're overeducated. So while you're getting your degree and going back to school and getting all this debt and all this loan, it's important to know that because by getting education, it means that you can get a job if you want a job. But if you don't want a job and you want to do your own thing, there's no point like, really at the end of the day other than networking. If you want to network, that's the only reason why actually, in fact, most people go to school just to network. If you are someone who is shy and you are an introvert and you are someone who don't like talking to people, then you may not be able to network very well or very much. And in fact, a lot of you guys watching this video may not even remember many people from your school. So it's kind of like, yeah, if you go to school for networking, but then it makes you fit in, really. That's kind of the main thing. It makes you fit in. It helps you learn the social norms. And some people in the West, they go to school to express themselves or explore themselves, whereby you have ladies, going to school and just meeting different guys or guys meeting different women. So that might be another reason for going to college, really. Yeah. So this video is not to say that college is bad. I want to be careful about that. But this video is just to say that by being educated, it causes a lot of problems in society. And in places like Africa or developing countries or third world countries, this can be an issue whereby you have someone who's elitist or someone who's thinking they're better than others because they have a piece of paper from an institution. According to Albert Einstein, education is not the learning of facts, but rather education is training of the mind to think. So at the end of the day, can you think? It doesn't matter whether you're educated or not, as long as you're entrepreneurial and you're doing your own thing. But if you're able to think logically, if you're able to challenge the status quo, if you're able to go against the grain, like, I have to do this for my church, for my pastor, my pastor's wife, why do I have to do it? Or my mom at the most want me to do this, like, why? If you're able to question authority, if you're able to challenge the status quo, then that's the process of education, I would argue, because you are thinking. You're thinking outside the box. You're thinking on your own. You're an independent thinker. There's something that Sadhguru said. He said that seekers are always alone and they're always lonely. Followers, they're always in crowd. And if you look at it, that makes sense because followers is a crowd of people who are together when there's a follower. So a lot of religions, they need followers because they can't think outside themselves and they're all together following themselves. It's where you have a situation whereby you have a seeker. A seeker is someone who's alone. Seekers are always alone. They're always the first. They are trailblazers. They don't confine. They don't conform. They don't do whatever else is. Now, if you look at a lot of the tech startups, most of them went to school and they dropped out because they just didn't fit in that box. I'm going to leave you guys with a quote from George Bernard Shaw. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists on trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the reasonable man. The point is, progress in the world have actually been done by people who are unreasonable, people who challenge the norms, people who go against the grain. Whereas the reasonable man is trying to adapt himself to the world just to make sure, oh, people don't laugh at me. Oh, I need to get my degree. My mom wants me to do this. I need to do that. My father wants me to do that. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, I need to be educated. I'm going to go and take a college loan to get this degree that I never even use or need. That's pretty much worthless if I'm not going to get a job. So I want you guys to think about that. And hopefully you can hit the subscribe button. And hopefully you can also like. If you've not yet subscribed, please subscribe. You can also like this video. And please feel free to leave a comment if you disagree with kind of everything I've said. Yes, we do have a podcast. It's the BattaBox podcast. So wherever you are getting your podcast, search for BattaBox podcast. We've been uploading video content there every week. And we have lots of guests. So please check that out. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching. This is Brodda Mike signing out. And I'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Bata bata, bata bata, bata box.